Welcome to the Impact Multiplier CEO podcast. If you're a chief executive, or if you think like one, and you want to create exponentially greater impact, then this show is for you. My name is Richard Medcalf, founder of Xquadrant. I coach some of the most successful and impressive CEOs and executive teams on the planet and help them achieve extraordinary results. And no matter how successful you've been in the past, there's always a whole new level of impact available to you. So, if you're ready to play a bigger game than ever before, I invite you to join us and become an Impact Multiplier CEO. Miguel Giribet is the CEO of Cash Converters in Spain. This is a really interesting business. It's halfway a financial services company and halfway a retail company. And Miguel has a great background in e-commerce and high growth businesses, and in his role as CEO, reporting into the two founders of the business, he brings that e-commerce expertise and also has to learn the whole physical retail side of the house as well. And in the conversation today, we get into some really great areas. We look at those two key places he needs to put his focus as CEO and how the balance between those two areas has shifted over time. We also talk about purpose. He took a sabbatical to Bali, and when he was on that trip, something happened to him that set him on fire with a purpose. And what has been really interesting is he's linked that purpose to the purpose of the business. And I think in that connection between the leader's purpose and the business purpose, all sorts of sparks fly. And you hear he gets really passionate when he talks about that. And then finally, we talk about what he's going to need to change for him as he grows the business. He has a vision to grow the gross margin of the business 3 times in 5 years and to double the revenues at the same time. So what's going to change in him if he's going to become the leader who can do that? Enjoy this conversation with Miguel of Cash Converters España. Miguel, hello and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Richard. Happy to share with you my stories.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to getting into this, Miguel. I know that you are the CEO of Cash Converters in Spain. I know it's a business which is just over 500 people, 9 figures in revenues. It's a really interesting business, and I know it's a mix of financial services and retail. And you joined a month before lockdown as CEO of this growing business. So I'm sure you've got some really interesting stories to tell us about the learning curve.
Exactly. Well, no question about how hard these 2 years have been. As you said, I joined the company 1 month before the lockdown. Let's say with the typical challenges of a middle-sized company in need of a strong change process or transformation process, from a, let's say, very strong focused offline business plus offline financial services towards a more digitalized company. Okay. So big challenge. Plus, suddenly, our offline business in March 2020 falls down completely. So you have to deal with 2 different kind of challenges at the same time. So imagine how hard this has been in the last 2 years.
Yeah, so right. So this is going to be the interesting story, right? You have a business that you have to do a transformation on, and at the same time you have this crisis. The offline business falls off a cliff at the moment you're trying to move it forward. So let's just take a step back before we jump into that. Do you want to tell us very quickly about, first of all, just describe the business to us, right? The Cash Converters business. And then what was it about your previous life that got you this job, right? What was it that you brought from your I know you were in e-commerce before. Why did they hire you, if you like, into this role as CEO of this business? What do they see in that profile?
Well, going to this question is exactly. I come from the e-commerce business. Privalia was a very successful company within the Spanish, I would say, startup ecosystem. It was founded in 2006, and it was sold to one of our main competitors back in 2016 for 500 million euros. At that time, the biggest deal within the e-commerce, I would say, ecosystem. Yeah. So I kind of lived different stages in this company. I first opened our company in Mexico. Then I moved to Spain, where I needed to work on a turnaround process. And then I worked in the integration of our company into our competitor, let's say, who were the purchasing company, right? So I went through very diverse experiences within the same company, and always with a very, very strong focus on I would say, making things happen quickly, making growth happen, and making changes happen, and making integration happen. So it was all about making things happen in a very, very challenging ecosystem, which is a startup e-commerce fashion business. Yeah. So at the time I met the two owners of this company, they said, Miguel, I think, or we think your experience is quite relevant in making things happen through the team, right? That's one of the things that I bring from my previous company. It's about having the right team in the right place. And this company needed a transformation in terms of team. Yeah. So they said, hey, you're the right person to move this. We need to change the company. We need to change our business model. We need to change our culture. We need to change many things. You made all these things happen in your previous experience. Come here and help us, right?
Got it. Yeah. So there's a lot of things in that, right? So you had this experience and this expertise in high growth businesses, making things happen quickly through the team. Came into this business which needed a new business model, a new culture, and they saw that. So there was a sense of continuity, right, from those previous roles and bringing things in. Yeah. Let me ask you, what was the discontinuity, right? So what did you find that was perhaps a new challenge? Obviously, you had lockdown, which was a new challenge for everybody that arrived just a month after. But what was, in terms of that that role, perhaps over this bigger, more complicated business, or this very different business, what was different for you? What did you have to kind of wrestle with in the new role?
Look, so I would say basically the retail part, the offline retail part, yeah, it's something that I hadn't been able to work at in my previous experience. We were a pure player before, or we were a pure player in my previous experience. And in this company, I added the complexity of the retail offline, right? Which
and what's complicated about that? What makes offline, what do e-commerce people need to understand about offline retail that they don't understand?
Dynamics are quite different in terms of, for example, e-commerce people, we think constantly about how to improve conversion rate in our sites. For example, how to bring traffic. And those two things are quite, I would say, straightforward in e-commerce. Yeah. When it comes to offline retail, those two things are completely different. Yeah. How you drive traffic to your stores, how to create great experiences for your customers so that you improve conversion. That's a completely different world, right?
Right.
The way of thinking, it's quite similar. Yeah. But what are the levers to move traffic, conversion, average ticket? That's completely different. And of course, in the retail offline, it's all about people, or it's a lot about people. In the retail online, it's a lot about technology. Yeah. So they are completely different levers that you need to deal with. And especially when you're going through such a difficult time as all retailers are going through right now. Yeah. It becomes especially challenging to leverage on people to make things happen in stores. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you had you had that pressure from the offline business, as you say, it was falling off a cliff. And yet it's all about people, right? The physical retail and the experience for customer is going to be determined by the people who are running that store or that that business.
Exactly, exactly. There
And
are
so,
two.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say there are two things that make big difference in the conversion rate of whatever store. Yeah, product and experience. Yeah.
Mm.
On the product side, in e-commerce, you click a couple of buttons. Yeah, and the product is there. You improve a couple of, I would say, experiences in the funnel, and your experience is much better. Improving experience and improving product placement and what kind of product you have in stores, it's a completely different story. Yeah. So that those are the things that we're working on very strongly right now, and that, thanks God, they're giving us very good results. And in retail off, we're already selling more than what we were selling in 2019, which is very good news for us.
Yeah, that's amazing. So tell me as well, you do you basically report directly to the two founders that you mentioned?
Exactly. So I report to both of them. Plus, we've created an advisory board with external people, very strong people. Some of the people come from previous experiences that I had and people that I had worked with in previous companies. Some other people come from, let's say, the environment of the two founders, and we have created a good mix of people that help us on a monthly basis to focus, to think about our challenges, to talk about execution, all those things that sometimes are not discussed within the normal board of the company, I would say. So advisory board is a great tool for us to keep on moving and keep on pushing the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. My experience is very similar. I was 3 years. I was on the advisory board of a $3 billion tech distributor, and it was really interesting because they're so great at their operational stuff that they're doing, exactly. But you still get a really different perspective when you start to talk with external people and you mash those thoughts together. Exactly. So tell me, I guess the reason I was asking about this was, what was the surprise or what was the different challenge of perhaps being a very senior executive in some of those previous businesses and becoming the CEO with the direct management of the investors and the founders and the board and everything else? How's that kind of what did you find and discover during that process?
Wow, that's a very good question that I'm still discovering day by day. So I would say, look, when you are a CEO, I think you have to make two things happen. Yeah, your team doing their homework, I would say, taking their responsibility, making sure that that they put the right tools, people, processes, and so on to make things happen. Yeah. Plus, at the same time, you need to make sure that the owners do their homework, right? For example, making sure they have a clear vision of where they want to go. Of course, I'm the main responsible for strategy, but I want to make sure my two founders say, okay, that's the good way. Making sure they give you the financial capacity to do things. Making sure they find, for example, the right people for this advisory board. Making sure there are different things that are at a different level, and I think that being in the middle of that sandwich, so you need to make sure both teams do their homework, and that is the difficult part.
And if you were kind of giving advice to a new CEO, or even giving advice back to yourself, right, from a couple of years ago, what would you have advised them about? What would you have advised yourself if you could? Would you have said focus a bit more on your team, or focus a bit more on your founders, or would you said like make sure the resource understanding, the resource agreement is made? What would that?
Well, I think that's quite variable. I mean, there are times when you need to focus more on your team because they need probably more top-down, I would say, advice on how to make things things happen, on building their teams, on communicating the strategy, on communicating how relevant our proposal is. So there are times where you need to focus a lot more on that. And there are times where you need to focus more on managing the owners or the board of a company. Yeah, I think at this moment, I am more focused on the second one. Yeah, on making sure that I do together with the owners the homework on assuring, I would say, financial stability of the company, a long-term project to give the right environment to my team to make things happen.
Right.
Yeah. So having security, having visibility, what's going to happen. The pandemic has hit us quite strongly, like many other retailers out there. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think we still have a better, I would say, a better option or a better opportunity than other retailers, because we are in the second-hand sustainability, circular economy business, and this has a long-term, I would say, project visibility, right? But at the same time, from a financial point of view, we are all going through difficulties. Yeah, so we need to make sure that we, at an operational level, we have the right KPIs, the right economics to make sure we can go out there and say, look, this is our business. Now we need the financing.
Yeah, it's great. I think one of the things that when I'm working with my CEO clients, I'd always remind them that with CEO, you feel you have the ultimate power in a sense operationally, but actually the best way of using that power is always indirect, because every time you use your power directly, you step on somebody's toes, you take away their decision-making ability, their accountability and ownership, and you start to do it for them and you become the bottleneck. And even some people think, well, okay, I'll have to work in between that, so I'll be the bridge between sales and operations or whatever. But actually, if you take that role as well, you end up becoming the judge, the arbiter, the referee, and a bottleneck again. And so people go, well, if I can't actually make my operational decisions, or I can't even be the interface between operations, what do I do? My point is, it's always about setting the boundary conditions, the environment for success. And as you said, it's like, well, aligning with the founders or the owners, so that the resources and the support comes, the air cover comes from the top, creating the cultural environment, the leadership behaviors, all these kind of things, right? These are the governance, the things which allow everybody else to do their jobs to the best of their ability. And I think that's the shift.
And I think what you talk about a little bit about culture and governance and so on and so on. One thing which I think it's super relevant is making sure your company has a clear purpose. And we have refunded our purpose recently. We in Cash Converters have been quite focused, I would say, on what we call the need client, meaning our clients have been people that really need to buy or sell secondhand, while we see an opportunity to become a player which, let's say, facilitates circular economy and facilitates sustainability. And having this kind of purpose, making sure you facilitate circular economy, that attracts a lot of good profiles, a lot of strong people, strong professionals that want to work in a company which has a strong purpose. And of course, below the purpose, you have the values, you have communication, you have execution style, methodology, and so on and so on. The first thing is having a good and attractive purpose.
It's Richard here with a quick interlude. As part of my coaching and advisory work, I often work with leaders who have recently taken on the CEO role. It's a big leap from the comfort zone of functional leadership or business unit management. And it opens up a whole new set of stakeholders, pressures, decisions, and responsibilities. I found that there are 3 key things that will make a huge difference in those first quarters. Number 1, balancing the operational and the strategic, what I call CEO focus. Number 2, establishing credibility, what I call CEO presence. And number 3, managing stakeholders, those CEO conversations. I've written a short email series that goes into more detail on the transition to CEO and how you can practically sharpen your CEO focus, solidify your CEO presence, and master your CEO conversations. It's insightful and it's entirely free of charge, and you can register for it by going to xquadrant.com/go/curve. Now, back to the conversation. Yeah, I agree. Purpose is so key. I was working recently with two different companies, one really huge, one actually pretty small. And both of them, they kind of felt they were good businesses working well, but very focused on like this quarter's financials, right? And did we really have a bigger purpose than that? And actually both of them, I think we've actually discovered there is this deeper thing which does set them on fire and does impact the world around them, right? I always say purpose, it always has to be about impacting other people, other stakeholders, it could be the planet, it could be other people, but it's about how am I contributing, right? Beyond that. And so I always say finance is the fuel, but what's the destination, right? Businesses need finance, right? It needs money to invest and to grow and to pay people and to create great services. But just like a car's purpose is not to just burn fuel, right? It's to go somewhere. A business's job is to go somewhere as well, right? And
Exactly.
And finance is just part of that. So so tell me about the circular economy. Like, why is that important to you? Like, why did you focus in on that?
Well, that's a good story. Look, when I left my previous business, Privalia, Privalia was very much focused on fashion. Yeah, so it was a fashion outlet somehow. Okay. So right after I left Privalia, I went on a sabbatical trip with my family. I took my two kids, I took them out from school, and we said, okay, let's go and travel for 3 months. Yeah. So we went to Bali, we went to Cambodia, we went to Vietnam and Singapore, right? So we were traveling in this region of the world, which is, by the way, amazing. And I really recommend everyone, every executive who has the chance to do it, to take some months off. The more, the better. Yeah. And reconnect with what's important, right? Your family, your wife, your kids. So what I saw in Bali, especially in Bali, it's a huge amount of how can you say it, of trash in the streets, right? Plastics and textile, and a lot of dirty rivers, dirty seas, dirty beaches. It was terrible. Yeah. So I came back super sensitive with this situation in these countries, especially in Bali. Cambodia was as well quite impacting, but I would say Bali. And I said, there is something I need to do around this. Yeah. So I was doing a small research with my ex-CEO, the founder of Privalia, and we were thinking about doing something together in textile sustainability, right? But it was not easy. It was not easy. We did some numbers, we did some business plans and so on, and we said, it's not easy. Suddenly, these two guys, the two founders of the company, came up with a cash converters business. And I said, wow, this is secondhand. Yeah. And even if it's secondhand focused on a certain type of clients, I think this has the potential, the base to transform it into something different that can really change the purchase habits of many people. Yeah. And that's what we're doing now. We created what we call the converters movement, right? And below the umbrella of converters movement, we are proposing a lot of different actions to our community, to buy less new products, buy more secondhand products, to repeat more, to come back more often to our stores and so on, right? So beautiful. That's what took me, let's say, to this secondhand business. And that's why I'm right now so much obsessed with sustainability and circular economy.
Well, I love it because you have a story, Miguel, right? So you have a story. You went to Bali, you saw the beaches, and you realized you want to be part of a solution there. And I think it's so important that we always have something in our history, our story that comes out, and we have to connect our own sense of purpose with this corporate purpose, right? And find that intersection. I like to say, you can't move others until you moved yourself.
Exactly.
And I hear that in you. So I want to acknowledge you for that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Genuine.
Thank you
So
very
let's kind of wrap up a little bit and move into our little last section. I've got a few quick fire questions for you. Always interesting to hear different CEOs' views on these. So what's your favorite quote?
Oh, I think we talked about that a little bit before, right? There's a very interesting quote which says, "Strategy is a commodity, execution is an art." Yeah, and I really see myself in that. Yeah, I think many people can come up with a good presentation, with a good PowerPoint. Hey, this is where we need to go. These are like the 2-3 main rocks, yeah, that we have to go for. Okay, let's go for it. And many people fail there. Yeah, many people fail there. And I think that, to be honest, thanks to my previous experience and the two founders of Privalia, with whom I really learned a lot, I've become somehow a specialist in execution, yeah, in making things happen.
Yes, yeah. And actually, I have another take on that, which is people say you need strategy, then execution. I say what you really need is alignment and then leadership.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's yeah, it's subtle difference, right? Like you can have the strategy you want, but you need alignment and execution. Well, what you really need is, you said, the people to lead the people to do that. So let's go on.
And that's why communication is so important, because through communication, you can really make sure you align your company, yeah, and and the people in your company, and communicate. And that's why, again, strategy needs to be easy to understand, needs to be simple. Because if you communicate a complicated strategy, no one will get aligned.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a former strategy consultant, I get that, you know, and that was a hard lesson for me when I was beginning my career. You know, it was like, yeah, it's not about sophistication. It's about landing it, memorability, getting it into people. So next question, what's your favorite app on your phone at the moment?
Wow. Look, I use an app called Kultra. Kultra is a moto sharing app that I use every time I go to Madrid or Barcelona. And I try, not because I don't like the app, it's because I try to run away from, I would say, combustion, how do you call it? Normal cars.
Yeah, combustion engines,
combustion engines, exactly. So I use this app and reserve my electric moto, and you know, I drive all around the cities, even if it takes me, you know, 10-20 minutes more than with a car. I always try to use these electric vehicles, and it's super easy to use, super friendly. The good thing is that the company belongs to a very good friend of mine as well. So super happy to be able to use it.
And that was called Kultra, did you say?
Kultra. It's Cooltra.
Okay, Kultra. Okay, well, put that
and
in
they have motor sharing as well in Paris, in Milan, in Rome. They are expanding quite quickly, and I think they're one of the, I would say, the companies that is called to be one of the leaders in Europe in the future.
Amazing. How about a book? What book has really influenced you?
Oh, there are some of them that had influenced me from a professional point of view, but I like more the ones that influenced me on a personal way. Yeah, I'm reading one which is hitting me quite hard right now, or which is kind of making me go back to my old times. I'm reading a book about a murder of an ex ETA. You know ETA back in Basque Country 20-25 years ago. Yeah. And I lived the hard moments of ETA in the Basque Country and Basque I lived in San Sebastian.
Mm.
I've seen many hard things in that time, and this book is bringing me back to that time and making me think how, I would say, how fortunate we are today of being away or out of those times, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a very interesting book which takes place in Ibiza, and it's about how one of these ex-ETA guys is killed, is murdered by someone else, and
Right.
it talks about the murder and goes back in the time to those 20, 25 years ago. Super interesting book.
Yeah, fascinating. What would you tell your 20-year-old self? What leadership advice would you give them?
I keep on telling it myself, enjoy life. This weekend, I was in a very interesting event in Jerez de la Frontera, which is a place where flamenco happens, and like every day, every hour, and I love flamenco. And I was sending my mom some pictures, and she was telling me, hey, you've learned to enjoy your life. Amazing, right? And yes, I am someone who enjoys life, and I would tell it to myself. I tell it to my kids all the time, and I tell it to everyone. We're super fortunate, and we need to enjoy life, both personal and as well professionally speaking.
Lovely. You're so right. Last quick fire question. Who would you recommend come on this podcast? Who's an impactful CEO, somebody that you admire, that inspires you? Who comes to mind?
Well, I would say there are two people that I would recommend. Jose Manuel Villanueva, he's the founder of Privalia. He's been my boss for 9 years. He's much more than a boss today. We are super good friends. Every time I go to Barcelona, I sleep in his place. He never lets me go to a hotel.
That's so nice.
So we kind of catch up together, and he's founded another business. He tells me about his business. I tell him about mine. So he's the most impactful person I have had in my life. So try to connect, and he will give you amazing stories and amazing tips. Yeah. I think there is a second person. She's the founder. She's called Carlota P. Carlota P. She's the founder of Hola Luz. Hola Luz is an energy distributor here in Spain, and fighting against the big ones. Yeah, for, let's say, energy distribution. And she and her co-founders are doing an amazing job. Yeah, and Carlota and her two co-founders were in my same MBA class back in 2009, and you could already see, this lady together with the co-founders, they were going to do something special. Yeah, and they did it. And
the cream rises to the top. You can spot these things sometimes, can't you?
Exactly. Yeah. Those are super two impactful people. Even Timo Butfish, he's the founder of Cultra. I think he's an amazing guy, German guy. Loves Spain, lives in Barcelona. He's a very impactful guy as well, with very interesting insights, with a very clear vision about circular economy, sustainability, and all those things.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks. Those are great people. I'll look them up. Fascinating. Finally, no matter how much we've achieved, there's always a next level to get to. So what's the next challenge or the next level for the business? What's going to be growth for Cash Converters in España?
Yeah, we have a quite clear business plan and business path. In 2026, we have ahead of us right now a five-year strategic plan where we want to double our sales. Yeah, and we want to triple our gross margin. Okay. And there are different ways to do that, but have a pretty clear way. We want to grow our offline retail business by 40%. We want to triple our e-commerce business. Yeah. and we want to double our financial solutions business. So that would take us more or less to that doubling the sales and tripling gross margin.
Great. And so how are you going to need to change, Miguel, yourself? This is the difficult question, right? What's going to be the stretch for you as CEO to be the CEO where that can happen, to play a bigger game yourself?
I think that you mentioned something quite interesting some minutes ago, and it's basically about making sure you leave the right space to the right people in the company, right? So for the time being, I would say, due to the number of different challenges that we have ahead of us, plus the particular situation that we're going through, which is still the pandemic, I would say. I say I'm still quite operative. So I try to be very close to my team, even if they have a high level of decision-making power, no question about it. But I'm pretty much on top of them and trying to help them and asking, hey, what can I do for you? I think that at some point I will need to take a step back, and move more towards that other level that we were talking about, to be closer to the ownership of to the owners of the company, to give more of context, of financial, I would say, security of that general part of the business that is very, very important for a strong leadership team. So I think that's going to be my challenge, and finding the right moment and the right way to do that. I think that's again an art, and it's not anymore strategy, right?
Absolutely. It's called reinventing your success formula, right? And it's always challenging because we're having to do things which we didn't do before, right? Be less hands-on, be less the one driving the results, and more the one enabling and creating the context, which is always different.
I'll give you an example. Today I had a meeting with my chief people officer, and she told me, "Hey, Miguel, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm a little bit surprised because in the last days, in the last weeks, you haven't been so close, and we kind of miss you a little bit close to us." And I said, "Look, I'm doing all the things that are as important to you and to the others as I've been doing in the past." So hey, take the chance. Keep on going. Make your own decisions. If you need to ask, you always have me on the phone or on a meeting. Do it, no problem. So finding that balance between taking a step back and making sure your team does not feel like, hey, where is he? That is a strong challenge.
But we could do a whole new episode about that one, but let's leave it there for now. Miguel, it's been great to talk to you. If people want to find out more about you or about the business, how do they do that?
Well, you can ping me on LinkedIn, Miguel Giribet. So my name, my surname. There are not many. There's only one. My surname is quite strange. Anyone can ping me, can call me. My phone number is there. So happy to connect with as many people as needed. Perfect.
Miguel, it's been a real pleasure. I've really appreciated talking all these different things, complications of running a business through lockdown with this offline component, thinking about this dynamic between managing the board and managing the team, the sense of purpose, right, which has really come out, I think, there. And it's just been a fascinating conversation. So many thanks and all the best as you double your business in the next 5 years.
Thank you, Richard. I'm happy to share my experience and my insights, and hope to talk to you soon again.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Now let's talk about you. When you're in top leadership, when you're in the biggest role of your career, who supports you at a deep level as you lead others? Who helps you multiply your impact and get to the next level? If you're ready to learn more about our content, our coaching, and our community, then visit us at xquadrant.com.